everyone to this month's Intel session, where we'll dive into law firm growth and how to achieve that by attracting the best BD and MarComms professionals into your teams. Joining us today is Graham Seldon and Katie Rosser from Seldon Rosser, who are the absolute experts in this field and will be leading the presentation. Before we get started, however, for those of you who may be new here, just a very quick recap about Intel and what it stands for. So essentially, the Intel series are a suite of learning sessions designed and hosted by Practice Evolve to help equip Australian law firms with innovative strategies for sustainable growth in an evolving industry. And the way that we aim to do that is by hosting every month subject matter experts that come on board to talk about topics that are important to the industry and to Australian law firms. A number of quick housekeeping points. So there will be a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation. You're also very welcome to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screens to submit any questions you might have during the presentation, and then I will make sure that Katie and Graham get those answered for you. Also, look out for a very special offer from Seldon Rosser, which we'll talk more about at the end of the presentation. And finally, just to remind everyone, because everyone always does ask, this session is being recorded and the on-demand recording will be made available to everyone that's registered within the next day or two. So look out for that email from Practice Evolve. Finally, enjoy the session. So let me stop sharing my screen and I will pass on to Katie and Graham to introduce yourselves.
Thank you very much, Irina. We're really happy to be here and be part of the Intel series. So I'm Katie Rosser.
I'm obviously Graham Seldon. we are Seldon Rosser. We've been a business that's been together. We celebrated our 10th year in business just last month, actually. But we've actually been working together for 17 years, Katie, is it? 16, 17 years?
I think it's 18 if we're counting.
Oh,
so
18. I'm very glad for my Zoom screen. That makes me obviously look much younger than that. And we are focused on business development and marketing recruitment, specifically for the legal industry. We do clients outside of the legal industry, but our main bread and butter, as it were, has always been focused on the legal industry in both Australia and the wider APAC region.
We're happy to be here today. I understand this Intel series has been about business growth and different sort of speakers talking to that. So we're tying up the series talking about how you work out which kind of BD and marketing professionals you may want to bring in your business, how you know when it's time to secure them, and how to go about acquiring them into your business. So we're excited to share our presentation today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, both. And speaking of the presentation, let me bring that back up again. And Katie, give me a moment. I'm passing on the controls to you so you can take the lead.
Wonderful. Thanks very much. So let's start with some data. How do you know when it's time to first establish or grow your BD and marketing team? So at Seldon Rosser, regularly we do a survey of law firms in Australia to understand the ratio between BD and marketing professionals and partners. And actually we refreshed this survey only last month. So this is very up-to-date data. We found an overall average of 1 BD and marketing professional to 5 partners, from a range that went from 1 to 3 partners all the way to 1 to 6.5 partners. To put a little bit of science behind that ratio for you, when we talk about partners, that's any type of partner. Whether you've got different types, equity, salaried, that would be the total partners, and that would be every different level and type of BD and marketing and comms resource included. We looked at boutique, smaller, medium-sized, national, international firms, only included those that actually have any resource or team already, so they're not skewed by firms that don't. And some of the feedback that we get when we do this survey is that there is a little bit of variability in team composition. So what I mean by that is there might be a category of activities that in some law firms is done by a business development and marketing assistant, which in another firm might sit with EAs or admin resources. So there's a little bit of variability there. But if you're looking at this from your roles in your firms, you can absolutely apply this 1 to 5 to your own firm. And if you don't yet have a resource and you've got more than 5 partners, then it's time. If you've got less than that, you still need the function, but you might have part-time or consultants. And no matter what your size, you can apply this ratio to see how you compare to your competition in being set up to deliver everything this function needs to support you in your growth and profiling. I mentioned consultants at the beginning, and there is absolutely a great place for consultants rather than permanent resources when it comes to delivering your BD and marketing function. And actually at Seldon Rosser, one of the things we can actually do is provide introductions to consultants where that is the appropriate thing for your business. If you are in a situation where you're thinking about hiring your first ever BD and marketing resource or a new seniority of resource, sometimes consultants go in first to help with your overarching business strategy around that. And it's a very common rhythm and theme that then we Seldon Rosser get brought in next when actually there's a trigger point to going, we've had the consultant, we now need the permanent resource to deliver everything, to be with us day in, day out, running alongside us, and to really bring that knowledge and IP of intellect in this space in-house into our business.
Thanks, Katie. When we think about the impact of BD and marketing professionals on business growth, it's worth noting that 20 years ago, when I first started in recruiting business development and marketing professionals in Australia, the ratio for one business development to partners was something like 1 to 15. So the fact that it's now at 1 to 5, demonstrates to you just how big this market is for business development and marketing professionals in law firms. It's very rare to find a legal firm that doesn't have any marketing and business development capability, even whether that's part-time or using an independent consultant. So with that in mind, what do these people now do and how are they adding value to business growth? And I just want to spend just a few minutes talking about the different types of business development and marketing professionals you can hire for your business goals. So the first thing for you to do is to establish what is it that your business goal is for the next 3 to 5 years? Is it that you have got ambitious growth plans? Is it that you want to win more work from existing clients? They're the two most sort of popular reasons, and the sort of low-hanging fruit of business development is to increase work from new clients, or to expand your practice your current practice base into new clients based on the clients that you already have. And the business development professional can definitely help drive revenue in those areas. And if your focus was on really winning more work from the same type of client, then you would hire a business development professional to particularly focus on that KPI. But it may also be that you're a new startup, that you're a new entry to market, or that you're a new firm that's grown out of an old firm. Partners have moved away and set up their own niche practice, and the market may not know about you. And then if that is the case, then the clients won't know about you. So you have to increase your marketing and your brand profile within the market. It's also very important if you're thinking about clients, particularly in this very competitive legal market in the region. What is your client acquisition like? What is your retention strategy like? It's all very well and good hiring a BD person to win you more new clients, but what are you doing to keep the ones you've already got? And there is a specialist skill set around client development management, client account management, and retention strategies that a BD person can come in and help with. It may be that you've got great partners in your business, but they're not very good at winning work. Therefore, bringing somebody in who can actually coach and help individual fee earners to understand their own market and to win more work in their existing market by building their profile and having some business development strategies, quite quick and easy win business development strategies that might actually enable partners or senior fee earners to win more of that work. It's also the case we see firms hiring BD professionals when they're thinking of entering a new market. This might be that they've hired in partners who come in with different practice groups and it's a new practice group for them, or they may be thinking of launching in a new location, Melbourne to Sydney, Sydney to Brisbane, etc. Again, having somebody on the team who's a specialist in entering into new markets and understands all of the marketing, communications, business development, and client acquisition strategies that are necessary to make a new market successful. So you could be in a situation where you're thinking that all of the above are relevant for you. It could be that only some of the above are relevant for you. And that's why really working with Seldon Rosser at the beginning of this process is really helpful in determining the type of candidate and the type of job that you're going to go to market with.
So I know we've got different types of people on the call here today. It certainly includes CFOs and CEOs. And one of the things that really everybody should think about with a new hire in this space is how do you measure return on investment? And I know that people in those roles will definitely be thinking that. And look, I'll talk to this by separating out the different types of activities and professionals from business development to marketing communications, because there's different ways that you can measure your return on investment. So what do I mean when I say business development? It's the client relationships, it's the building revenue in new market, it's the winning work through tenders, pursuit of business. Often we get asked if people haven't had this sort of professional before, are they a salesperson? Are they going to set up clients' meetings? Are they going to win work on their own, bring in new clients? Do they get a financial KPI? Some of that is within the capability of what a BD person can do for you. Certainly over the last 10 years, BD professionals in legal have become more client-facing, more on the front foot for being voice of the client, eyes in the market, bringing insights and bringing leads into the business. But what's really important when you're thinking about return on investment is you can't just pick up this requirement of building new revenue and clients and business and pass it to this individual, because in a law firm, it's just not possible for them to do it in isolation. You wouldn't want them to, your clients wouldn't want to be speaking to them in isolation. So it certainly should be the expectation of the partnership that this person will be running alongside your partners. What you can expect them to be doing is activating your partners and other lawyers in the business in their activity in the market. So they will develop the strategy, they will bring ideas, they will bring initiatives from talking to clients, from talking to the market, but they will need to activate your partners, your lawyers, and their time in the activities that will be collaborative in order to achieve those goals. That said, so you wouldn't give them their own financial KPI because they're not able to achieve these things in isolation. That said, you'll want to have some clear ways of measuring whether this whole hire and this whole team is successful. And some of the examples might be an increase in tender win rate. It might be getting onto panels, whether renewed clients or new clients, increasing share of wallet with clients, etc. In marketing communications, it is a little bit further removed from the money coming in the door of the business, so a little bit harder to measure your return on investment. What do I mean when I say marketing communications? It's the profile raising activities. It's your campaigns, it's your events, it's your content, attending events, sponsorships, partnerships, putting on your own events, digital presence, dealing with the media. All of those things are marketing communications. Internal comms can fall into this as well as part of staff engagement. And there are ways you can measure whether different campaigns are successful. For example, how many people who attended that event we put on translated into a one-on-one client meeting, translated into work and revenue that came from that meeting? How many people clicked on a particular digital campaign, took up the call to action for a meeting, and then that went into revenue? But the time lag is long and it's harder to track. And so there has to be an understanding that this will not be as scientific and as close to seeing a more instant ROI as a BD professional. What I would say is, if you are creating these roles for the first time, or even if you are just meeting people to add to your team and replace professionals, ask them. You know, when they're giving you examples of their work, how did you measure the success of that? How do you think we should measure the success of this new role over the next 12 months? Because these professionals have become a lot more strategic and sophisticated over the last few years, and you can expect them to have a good answer to this and to help you with this and to appreciate the question as well. Now, you might be sat there going, but we need all of the above. Does it come in one person? And we do have ultimate generalists offered in firms that are smaller, who do need somebody to do it all. They do exist, specialist in perhaps none, but jack of trades in all of them. We are in touch with people who can do it all. If coming back to return on investment and budgeting, if you are looking at budgeting for this function, particularly if you're doing it for the first time, it's important to recognize and understand it's not just the line item to secure the salary of this person. There are additional costs to take into account. Again, the piece of research that we refreshed just last month will tell you that a typical marketing budget for a law firm would be 2.5% of overall revenue. Now, that includes people, salaries, or external consultants, but it also includes the cost of programs. What do I mean by programs? The event you put on, the online campaign you put together, and all the different things that factor into that cost. So you might get asked, what is the marketing budget by the person coming into this role? And it's important to have one. Technology budget. I mean, if you're here today, you're certainly invested in Practice Evolve and see the importance of technology. So that's great. But if you hire a BD and marketing person, part of their strategy might be to add on improvements on CRM, for example, or other types of technology, which they should have a good business case for that will show the return on investment of that, but be ready for that as well as your people budget.
So one of the questions we get asked most is, what seniority should we be hiring? And it's important to note that really the return on investment goes to how much of your lawyer time are you going to save by having a business development and marketing person in your business? That's important to reflect on because there's often a false economy, particularly in small law firms, where they hire a part-time resource or a junior resource because they think that they shouldn't be spending that much money on marketing, but then they have partners taking up quite a lot of time doing quite low-level marketing activity. I spoke to a managing partner in Singapore a few months ago who they had a team of 4 partners. They had no marketing resource, and they were spending all of their time between them putting on 3 events a month. So in a way, they were probably the most expensive event managers you've ever heard of in your entire life. You think of a banking and finance partner in Singapore, how much they're charging on an hourly rate to clients, and there they are between them putting on 3 events a month. So I think it's important that you identify that there's a cost saving when you're hiring a marketing business development person for every hour they're taking off the desk of a fee-earning lawyer or fee-earning partner. But let's look at the 4 most common levels that firms would go to market for. They are really, as you would expect, at the very junior end, the executive coordinator. This is the person that you would hire if you just literally want somebody to execute quite low-level administration around marketing. It might be putting guest lists together. It might be organizing Christmas cards at the Christmas, sending out Christmas cards. I mean, you wouldn't believe that this is still a thing, that people hire senior managers sometimes to send out Christmas cards. But generally in a business, a smaller firm, this person is a sort of admin person for any marketing client activity that goes around the marketing function. But when you get more sophisticated, you're bringing in a manager level person. This is somebody who is more autonomous. So this is a person you can leave on their own to maybe drive some of the marketing programs that you have in your business already. They might be able to execute strategy, but they're unlikely at this level to be actually helping you develop strategy and also audit the strategies that you're already and the programs that you're already running. So really, to get effective return on investment, for any marketing and business development resource, you really only get that when you've got somebody in the function who's telling you whether or not the things that you're doing are actually making a difference, whether they're actually adding growth to the bottom line. So often you see firms do the same marketing activity year after year after year because they've already done that. That's what they do. And then somebody comes in and says, how do we actually measure whether this event that we're putting on or this publication that we're sending out is actually adding to the bottom line, is actually adding value to our clients? And bringing in a senior manager, somebody who's got experience of being able to audit those sorts of programs, who's got the sort of authority to be able to speak to partners and say, I think that even though you're wedded to this program because you've been doing it for the last 10 or 15 years, let me tell you, it's actually costing you money. It's not bringing any money through the door. Those people are actually quite important in moving the dial of revenue generation. And then when you get to the most senior level, which is the director, head of level, these are people really who you're bringing in to help you sort of shape the business growth, work with the senior members of the executive leadership team to really drive forward the strategies that you as a business have put in place, your 3 to 5 year growth plans. This is the person who's going to take responsibility on the ELT to really make sure that you're honest and that you're sticking to the plan and that you're actually developing strategies that are winning clients and winning revenue. So across the 4 spectrums, you'll see that you can dip into any sort of level of this, but when you go for more junior resources, you're using more lawyer time. When you're recruiting more senior resources, hopefully what they're doing is they're freeing up time, but they're also bringing in strategies that will actually help you win revenue and help you get to where you need to be from your business growth potential.
It's worth mentioning here as well that there's been a trend over the last few years when people do hire their first ever resource, instead of starting at the more junior place for all the reasons that Graham has said, they've actually made a decision that their first resource will be a senior manager or a head, and they don't need to have a team to come in at that level.
Yeah. So this takes me to the slide, which is thinking specifically about hiring somebody at the more senior level. What is it that you're hiring, and what are the business goals that dictate that you should be recruiting a more senior candidate? If you've got an existing team in place, it might be that the person that you're recruiting is to replace somebody else, and it's really just a business as usual job that you've put to market. It's a replacement role. You've got a team of 3 or 4 people, they're doing really, really well, they just need somebody to manage them. We don't really want to do anything different in the business. We're very happy with how things are going. We're still profitable, where we haven't got any aspirations to do anything very different. You'd hire somebody who could just come in and sort of keep the status quo going. But more often than not, if somebody leaves at this level, it's a great opportunity for the business to sit down and say, what do we actually need from this resource, and does it align to our business goals? And the 4 real business goals that we see reflected in job descriptions and we see reflected in searches that we do at this level are hiring somebody who can really help drive sales. And this is somebody who can come in with real experience, demonstrative experience of being able to work with fee earners to develop a strategy which will build solid pipeline. Somebody who probably has a really good understanding of client relationship management frameworks, can help you audit your clients, can help you look at the profitability of some of your clients. You'd be amazed, I'm sure some of you may or may not be amazed, that law firms working with clients that are actually not profitable, high maintenance clients with low revenue, as opposed to low maintenance clients with high revenue. So this is when a senior person who comes in who's got experience of being able to audit clients, look at the way in which you build pipeline, work with your finance team to understand what your quarterly targets are going to be, whether you're on track for those quarterly targets. Somebody who's got authority to come back to the business and say to the partners, we're not going to meet that target in the next quarter. These are the things we need to do to get there. Then you might hire somebody who is really, really focused on the brand. So there are instances in your life cycle of your business where you might need to refresh your brand, or if you're a new entry to market where you need to get your brand out into the market. So hiring a senior person who's got solid experience in understanding how brands work in the legal sector, in this highly competitive market, what you can do to differentiate your brand, areas where you need to be focused on maybe refreshing your brand. Somebody with that experience is really, really, really useful if that is the biggest thing on your agenda, or if that is the thing that's blocking you from moving forward. And sometimes lawyers think that brand is a little bit sort of, they can't really understand the value of it. But let me tell you, every single firm that's ever rebranded, it's had a massive effect internally on the stakeholders in the business. People love a rebrand. They love to be able to talk to their clients about the rebrand. It gives you another reason to have a conversation with clients, another reason for you to raise your profile. So we often see brand and pipeline building and senior sales strategies, they go hand in hand. You can't really have one without the other. Brand can be a real door opener. So getting somebody who understands brand can be really important. It will be no surprise to anybody on this webinar that the legal profession is going through the biggest transformation that I've ever seen. I've been working in the legal profession for over 20 years. It's a major transformation. And so businesses are having to, law firms are having to adapt and change and transform the way they do business, sometimes transform the way they do business in terms of technology investment, transform the way business in terms of how they do pricing, how they commoditize their practice groups, whatever it is that you need to do to help you be competitive in this market. You can hire a BD professional who has experience in working with business through a transformation project. And we're seeing more and more and more, particularly at senior level, this real need to get somebody in who's a change manager and who's got solid experience in influencing internally and helping the practice to really change the way in which it goes to market and change the way in which it thinks about its business. So we're seeing that as a very sort of, as a newer sort of skill set that's being demanded from our candidate base. And then finally, hiring somebody who has a whole of business strategy in their kit bag, somebody who's used to working as part of the wider ELT leadership team, somebody who can work alongside HR when it comes to things like employment branding and understanding recruitment practices for fee earners, maybe even be involved in performance management. We've seen senior client relationship roles move into roles which are very much around partner performance being judged by client engagement. So it's not uncommon now for BD people to get involved with HR on coaching partners and looking at ways in which partners can improve their business development activity and their win ratios, but also working with your finance team to understand the numbers and working with the broader sort of COO operations team to look at where efficiencies can be made or where new markets can be developed. So you can see how hiring a senior person suddenly goes from being a sort of low-level administration where the lawyers do a lot of the heavy lifting to bringing in somebody that literally is the person on the ELT who takes responsibility for business growth.
And so, look, we've set ourselves up and talked through when to hire these people, what your ratios are, who you need to hire. In a second, we'll come to how do you actually attract those people. But I think it's really important first to actually touch on retaining them from a perspective of what do you need to do? What do you need to put in place to set them up for success and set up the function for long-term success in your business? So first of all, what does success look like? And there's two ways that I want to get into this. First of all, it's really important to get clear when you're hiring this sort of person, whether it's for the first time or replacing or growing your team. How do we know that this investment has been successful over the next 12 months? And you need to make sure that the leadership and all the key partners really understand what you're trying to achieve and why, and the person stepping into your business understands that as well. If you do hire a more senior person, as Graham has just been talking to, it would not be unusual to co-create the answer to that with your next employee as you go through an interview process with them. But, once you get to manager or below, it really needs to come from you a little bit more, and there needs to be a shared understanding of success. I also think, answering this another way, that it's important to reference, particularly to leaders of law firms or HR, that marketing and BD and comms professionals may not always stay in your firm for as long as the lawyers. You know, there will always be some that stay for well over a decade and add value for that time, but others do tend to move a little bit more than your lawyers. And it's just logical in terms of the size and scale of the teams that they're within. So if they're in a standalone role or a team of sort of 1 to 5, there are less career development opportunities than these much larger teams of lawyers. But it can be a surprise sometimes to leadership as to, you know, oh gosh, it's been 4, it's been 5 years, whatever it might be. So it's important to recognize that that's still success. To Graham's point of matching the people you're hiring to where you are in your business life cycle, transforming business as usual, there can be great benefit to hiring a different type of person each time the role comes up. And actually, not just going straight to market, going, what is the role today? It may not be the same as what the role was a year ago. To affirm that, over on the right, if I think about the 3 main reasons that this type of professional would leave a law firm, based on another piece of industry research that we did earlier in the year, these are the 3 main reasons they leave: salary, career development, time for a change. Here's the reality: there's not a lot you can often do about those things, or in fact would always want to do about those things, particularly in a smaller team. If they're on the right salary, that might not be something that you want to move at that time. So again, recognizing the reasons these people stay and then the reasons they will join, we'll look at in a moment. Learning and development is really critical. You can apply this to anyone in business services, HR, finance, business development, and marketing. Often there are big programs in place for the lawyers, but it's less easy or it's less front of mind to make sure this is available for business services. It doesn't have to be a huge budget, but making sure there's something in place often for external learning if there's no internal mentor for this person, whether it's conferences or an executive coach, whatever that might be. And that's one way that you can demonstrate to people in business services that you really value the function. But knowing that the function is valued, having real open communication with the executive leadership and the management of a firm is critical to retaining people, but also critical to setting up your BD and marketing comms person for success. If they understand the vision of the firm, if they understand the strategy of the board of management, the risk appetite of the board of management, they're much more likely to present business cases and ideas that speak to that are things that you want to say yes to, than if they're removed from that. It's also a way of keeping them, but it's a way of making sure that you get what you need out of them as well. So we've talked about retention, and really the next thing, and this is where Seldon Rosser is very much expert, is talking about how do we attract the best BD and marketing communications professionals out there. Before I touch on these dot points, I will start off by saying it can be a surprise to some lawyers and leaders of law firms that actually this category of professional can be harder to find and to bring into your business than the lawyers. There are less of them. It's a very, very specialist skill set. Some of that is a technical skill set. A lot of that is a soft skill, cultural skill set and a cultural matching to your business as well. So it's a very specialized type of role and real specialism, bringing them into them and attracting them to your business as well. Now, you can apply some of what I'm about to say to other categories of role in your firm as well, but I'll speak to BD and marketing professionals in particular. The most critical thing when you're seeking to attract them is getting a story and a narrative out into the market about your firm and about your role. The great news and really interesting thing is that marketing and BD professionals don't necessarily join a firm for the same reasons as lawyers. It's not all about who are the clients, what's the particular type or quality of legal work that we're doing for that type of client. It's more about what is the mandate and the type of BD and marketing work I'm going to do for this firm? What's the permission? What's the ownership? What's the appetite for doing something new or ideas or building something where there was nothing before? So that means it's not uncommon for someone who might have been in a big brand, premium, international legal brand to then work for a much smaller boutique legal brand, to then work for an unheard of brand that's a challenger or new brand in the market. So it means that actually brand isn't necessarily, and placing in the market isn't necessarily critical. So what is the story of your vision, the story of why you're hiring this person and what you're wanting to achieve. So if you go to market with a job ad and a job description, which is just a very bland, to be honest, list of responsibilities, where you could just change out the name of the firm at the top and it could be any other law firm, frankly, any other category of business, it's a high road to nowhere, to be honest with you. And actually, there is much more of a trend of the first couple of paras and then thematic throughout of this sort of document to be storytelling, and the tone that you would use, as well as the information, if you were sat down with them for 10 minutes, telling them about what's on offer. And actually at Seldon Rosser, we often put prospectuses together for our clients where we do a Q&A with the CEO or the managing partner or different people in the business as well, which talks to that story and adds the value there too. All of this is not just telling the story, it's demonstrating that you have a strategy. It's demonstrating that you're invested in this and see the value of this function through doing this. And with your HR team, all your other employer value proposition messaging, the reasons anybody would join your business are sort of peppered through strategically as well. So it needs to be strategic and there needs to be storytelling. Appropriate job title. Now, job titles in marketing, BD, communications, in legal, and all of prof services actually are much more disparate and less uniform than lawyers. So it's not actually as easy or a simple thing to work out what the right job title is, particularly if you've had somebody resign and you're going back and replacing the role. Don't just assume it's the same title. Take advice from us, because frankly, the role's probably different, and there has been an evolution of trends of job titles as well. But if I think about lawyers, even from a level perspective, you know, PQ2, PQ3, associate, senior associate, it's quite easy for us to understand what that means across different sorts of law firms. But the way in which firms use manager, senior manager, executive, consultant, specialist is not uniform, and it can mean different things to different firms. I think it's really important when we talk about this with clients to say, what's it going to mean to your partners and your other stakeholders internally? And what's it going to mean to your clients? And is it going to be a job title that works for the mandate you're giving them, potentially with clients and internally? The salary has to be right. If anybody is at that point where they're looking at this, you can get in touch with us for a detailed salary benchmark report that we have. I will say, at every budget, there is a solution. Whether that's full-time, part-time, senior, junior, consultant, perm, there's always a solution at every budget. Where we come in is sometimes matching expectations to budget. And what's critical is to understand what you're going to acquire for the budget you have, and whether that's what you want and whether that's a realistic expectation, or whether you need to change your expectation of what you're going to get or change your budget. And those are conversations we have frequently. Culture means different things to different people. It's a matching exercise. Flexible working. This category of person in legal is tending to be in the office 3 days a week. You could have a whole webinar on flexible working, but it's critical to get your messaging about that out into the market. I've mentioned before that closeness with the ELT. Really important when you're attracting this kind of professional, that every touch point in your recruitment process demonstrates that visibility and that value and that support. So in the storytelling I've mentioned, but also in the interactions they're having with you. So these individuals would be expecting to speak to senior decision makers early in the process, having a two-way conversation, and being able to have an open, transparent understanding of the start of a relationship in the interview process. Now, of course, working with a specialist recruiter, i.e. Seldon Rosser, and I think what's critical there to pick up on what a Seldon Rosser can do is the access to passive talent. So we clearly do a lot of research reports, and one of the ones we did earlier in the year showed that just over 60% of BD and marketing professionals in the legal sector are open to moving jobs in the next 12 months. Now, critical, only 40% of that 60% are actively looking for a job, responding to ads, putting effort into doing it, really driving forward there, which means there's a big category of candidate that we call passive. They're waiting for their trusted career specialist to tap them on the shoulder, to tell them the story, to join the dots of why this role might match their career aspirations. And so it's Seldon Rosser that gives you access to those passive candidates, which, let's be honest, I suppose in any role you're recruiting, often the people not looking are, frankly, usually the best people.
It's also worth mentioning, Katie, that we see a lot, particularly when firms are hiring a resource for the first time, or a senior resource for the first time. Actually, where we add real value is introducing passive candidates to them to help them actually shape what it is that they're looking for. So a good example of that is a few weeks ago, we had a law firm in Sydney, and they were thinking of hiring a senior BD and marketing resource, but they weren't quite clear on what the focus of that role should be. And we had 2 or 3 candidates who were just really looking for something different, and they were happy to be introduced by us. They trusted our judgment, and they went along and had a conversation with the executive leadership team on what they could offer and what they were looking for and what they felt that they could add value. And through that process of meeting 3 candidates, the business was actually able to shape the right job description and actually hire from that 3 somebody who had been involved in shaping their own job. So you can see how sometimes working with passive talent can actually be to the benefit of creating the job that actually works on both sides.
Yeah, it's a really good point. So this leads us to the moment where we're happy to take questions. Irina, have we had anything come through?
We definitely have. Before we jump to the questions, though, you do have a little offer available to everyone that's registered. Did you want to talk to that
Yeah,
quickly?
Yes.
certainly. Well, as you've heard from us, what we're really trying to say to all of you is there is no one size fits all approach to this. We see that when we call ourselves recruitment consultants, but invariably we're more consultants than recruiters. And that's because we spend a lot of time working with firms and working with lawyers and the leadership of law firms to help them identify what it is their business needs and the type of professional that can help them deliver on those needs. And so the offer we have for you today is that we're more than happy to have a one-on-one 30-minute consultation with anybody who's thinking about either reshaping their existing marketing and business development function, or even going to market for the first time for a marketing and BD professional. We're happy to have a one-on-one, whether it's Katie, whether it's I, whether it's both of us. It's still the same, it's still free. We're happy to offer some time in our diaries to have that conversation with you.
Thank you, Graham. So what I'll also do, you've got a poll up on your screens to be able to take up the offer now. But what I will also do is in the follow-up email with the on-demand recording of this session, I'll include a link to this and to Graham and Katie's calendars as well. So let's move on to the Q&A part of the presentation. I've got a few questions that's come in, actually. Let's start off with this one. This is a new area for us, and we haven't had someone in the BD role before. What should we be asking them to help us work out if they are suited for the role and whether to hire them?
So I'd say the first thing is to design questions that go to the impact that you want this person to have. In 6 or 12 months' time, what do you want this person to have achieved? And design questions around that, whether it's to do with win rate with tenders, clients, etc. But what I would say, 2 of my favorite things that you can ask candidates is, what are you going to do in your first 3 to 6 months? How are you going to tackle this role? That will give you some real insights into their understanding of what you need, what they can actually offer you, but also into who they are and the pace that they will move, to make sure that that matches the pace that your partnership is ready for if they're bringing in something new in particular. I think that's one of my sort of favorite things that you can ask candidates. Graham, would you have anything to add?
I would say, you know, for what is the genesis of you hiring somebody in the first place? Like, why have you as a collective group of fee earners, partners got together and said, we now need to hire a marketing and BD professional? What's the genesis of that? And then go from there. And that's when I was talking before about having informal conversations with passive talent can sometimes help you shape that. So if you've got a divide, which is we think we want a BD person, but we're not sure what BD people do, then having a conversation with somebody who is actually a BD person in a law firm to help you understand what they do can actually help you determine whether or not that's what you want in your business.
And if you want them to be your advisor in this area, ask them what they think the role should be and how it should be measured. Have you been in a situation where you've entered a firm that's been at this point in its life cycle before? What did you achieve? What was the outcome? And if they're not talking about clients and return on investment as part of that, then you know you're learning something about them.
Yeah,
That's an answer in itself.
Mm.
We're having quite a few questions coming in. So one of the questions is, I know it varies from firm to firm. Based on your knowledge, what's the partner to BD ratio for a mid-sized law firm?
Yeah, so when we did this research last time, so it was a couple of years ago, we went into more detail and we actually split by firm size a little bit more. At that time, we were finding that the medium-sized law firms had 1.5 to 1.8, which we've seen as reduced and so they've got a little bit more resourcing than they used to in that average that we put forward before. But we do tend to find that the larger firms and the international firms, their ratios, they're slightly better resourced, sometimes than the medium-sized, but they're catching up. Would be the trend that we're seeing.
Another question we've got here is just around an idea of the range of salaries for different BDM professionals. Is that something that you can give a ballpark?
we have a salary benchmarking survey. It's very comprehensive. People can reach out to us and we can provide that. We can send it today. It's really easy. Covers the whole spectrum.
Because it's different for marketing and BD, and there's lots of different levels. So it's probably 10 minutes of going through data, or ask for the report.
I'll make a note of that in the follow-up email, so this person's got the link to
They can just email us. Yeah.
Perfect. This has come through from a relatively new immigration law firm, but they would like to know whether an in-house BD be a good initiative for an immigration law firm, or better to get an external consultant until the business grows a little.
I think so that's a really interesting question coming from immigration. It depends whether the client base is Joe Public. So if it's an immigration lawyer and they're looking to win more clients from the public, then that to me would be a strategy around what is your marketing, what is your brand profile raising, what do you do to get your profile in the market. Now if you're a new firm, you probably would benefit from speaking to a consultant in the first instance, a marketing consultant who can come in and help build a series of programs for you. So it might be that marketing consultant comes in and says, you can work with me 1 or 2 days a week, and I can put in some brand and marketing programs that bring clients through the door, their client attraction program. So I don't know if it's business development or whether it's marketing communications. But so if you've never had the function before and you're a new business, I would say it's probably too early for you to hire a BD and marketing person in-house. You probably speak to a consultant. That consultant might only be with you for 3 or 6 months, and they might then help you shape what it is that your business needs long term.
If I think about immigration businesses specifically, there are 2 that I can think of, and that are, large organizations and established in this space that would have in-house BD teams as well as marketing. But that strategy would go to winning work through relationships with businesses and getting the corporate immigration work from them as well.
Yeah.
And so I think that then goes to what size are you now and what size do you want to be and what's the time frame of that? And you can come back to our ratios, which just back up what you've said there, Graham. But there's the B2B piece too.
Yeah, and also we didn't mention, but it's worth mentioning, if you're a specialist firm, like an immigration firm, sometimes it's useful for you to hire a candidate coming from that market. So who already comes to you and says, so for example, somebody who's working in one of the larger immigration firms might say to us, well, I'm working in a team of 5 BD people. I'd quite like to have my own firm. I'd like to go and create everything from scratch. And so you could be getting somebody from your industry who knows way more about it than another marketer coming from a different law firm. And we often do get law firms asking us to hire BD and marketing people coming from particular practice areas. Disputes is a really big one. People love to hire people who've previously got disputes experience going into a disputes practice, or banking and capital markets is another one. IP is another one. So in the way that lawyers have specialized over the years, BD professionals in law firms have also specialized. So it's possible you might get a BD person from an immigration firm, and then it's a win-win.
That's a really interesting point. Couple of other questions we've got here. We're a small firm and need someone looking after events. Could this person be helping us grow client accounts and coaching my partners?
Katie?
Yeah. Absolutely. So look, this goes to our point of the ultimate generalist. You do get individuals who can do it all, but the fact that they wouldn't be an event specialist, they would be a generalist, would mean that they would be looking at the purpose of events, where it fits in the whole model. They would be able to coach your partners as part of that ecosystem on, why are we doing this event? How does that align to our business growth strategy? How does that align to the clients we want to get more work from? How does that align to the clients we haven't worked with that we want to pursue and bring into the business? So there will be naturally coaching and looking at the whole piece, with events being a small part of that. If you're actually thinking about logistics, if you're thinking name tags and chairs in the office and all that sort of stuff, there's definitely generalists have strategy and doing, and part of the skill set is you jump between the two. But often if you've got a generalist and the role is growing and growing and growing, you would want to, particularly for events, give them access to office managers in different states or EAs to help with that category as well. But it depends which is the most important thing. If you're a firm that's doing events and only events, you probably need someone to tell you whether that's a good idea and whether you're focusing on the right thing first and foremost.
And events in itself is a career. So, if you're looking at a major professional services firm who do 300 events a year, then they have a dedicated events team. If you're a firm that just when you think about events, it's actually a couple of seminars and the Christmas party, then that's not enough for one person to do as a job all year round. And if it is, then that's a job I want.
One final question, unless this is last chance for anyone that's got a question to just use the Q&A at the bottom of the screens to submit it. But one final question we've got here thus far. We're thinking about hiring a head of operations. Will they bring any marketing skills?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because there's different types of places you can find a COO or a head of operations from: HR, finance, a career in ops, or marketing and BD. And we've definitely seen a trend over the last few years that more senior ops roles have been looking at that marketing and BD pool. That tends to be a business that is focused with ambitious plans for growth. That's why that's the most critical part for them at that moment in time. It's an attractive career path for some marketing and BD professionals who've got some business management and ops experience along the way. Certainly at Seldon Rosser, we play COOs and head of operations roles before. So yes, absolutely, you can design the role and target people that have those skills. But probably I'd have a conversation with you first about what's the main purpose of that role? What do you want to achieve? And work out whether that is the right person for you to be attracting.
Thank you, Katie. We actually have one of our attendees, Sean Del Popolo, that's raised his hand, wants to ask a question directly. Sean, are you still with us? No? Okay.
Oh, here he is.
Oh,
Yeah, I
he is, yes.
am. I didn't realize I'd raised my hand. Hey guys, how are you?
We're
Put
good,
yourself
thank
out
you.
there. I like it.
Yeah. Look, we're a smaller firm. We've only got 2 partners, but we have about 9 lawyers, and we're really at the crossroads now of how we sort of jump into it initially. And I think you sort of alluded to it earlier that perhaps a marketing consultant, an external consultant on a part-time basis, probably be the way for us to go initially. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think
It
so.
would,
Oh, sorry, go-
you
you
go.
go.
You go.
I was going to say you can also apply the stat I gave you on overall marketing budget and think about your revenue and 2.5% of that as well, because not all 2-partner 9-lawyer firms will be built the same when it comes to the output there. So if you think about your marketing budget and then apply a proportion of that to people, whether it's a permanent hire or a consultant, that will give you a bit of a gauge. But I think you're right. One of your options would be to at least start with a consultant, or potentially even a part-time permanent resource, depending on the key things you need to achieve. What are your growth ambitions? You know, are you trying to grow, and what does that growth look like? Let's not make assumptions there about what every firm wants to achieve. Sorry, Graham, you were
And the
going.
great thing about having a consultant is that it may be that you just want each individual lawyer to have their own BD strategy and BD plan, and then an overall plan that they all fit into. And certainly the right type of consultant could help you with that. You do need to find the right consultant. So there are consultants who are BD specialists, or consultants who are marketing specialists. And there are consultants who are generalists. So if you're in the market for a consultant, that's where you decide to land. Have a chat with us, because depending on where you're based and what you're looking for, we can probably introduce you to the right type of consultant as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question was, how do you wade through all of the consultants and find someone that's good?
Yeah, well, we've got lots on referral. I mean, we've been working with them for years. So often it just goes to word of mouth recommendation.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Pleasure.
Thanks,
All
Sean.
right. Thank you so much, Katie and Graham and Sean, for making a debut.
Thanks for joining. Yes, the group.
Yeah. I appreciate your time today. Definitely loads of food for thought, especially for those firms thinking of branching out into this space and getting someone on board. As mentioned, look out for the email with the recording of the session, and then I'll also make sure to include Katie and Graham's details, where you can reach out directly to either book in that 30-minute consult or get your hands on all these resources, on all the industry research. But I appreciate your time, and thank you to everyone who's joined us today. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you for inviting us. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.